My name is Sarah Mitchell, and on my son's graduation day, not one single family member showed up to watch him walk across that stage. But when a world-famous musician appeared out of nowhere with an offer that would change our lives forever, everyone who abandoned us suddenly wanted back in. Before we dive in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. I stood outside the Riverside Community Center at 6:47 a.m. watching the maintenance crew roll out red carpet that stretched from the parking lot to the entrance. The spring morning air carried the scent of fresh-cut grass and possibility, but all I felt was the familiar ache of doing this alone. Again. My phone buzzed with the same text I'd been staring at for 3 days. Sorry, Sarah. Can't make it to Tyler's graduation. Work emergency. You understand. David. My ex-husband, living his best life in Phoenix with his new wife, Ashley. Their perfect suburban existence. Their matching Range Rovers. The man who used to tell Tyler bedtime stories about brave knights and magical kingdoms couldn't find time for the most important day of our son's life. I scrolled through my messages, each one a small knife twist. My sister Jennifer, 45. Minutes away. Kids have soccer playoffs, can't reschedule. My parents. Your father's back is acting up. The drive is too much. My former best friend Maria. Radio silence since I'd invited her 2 weeks ago. Even Tyler's father figure, Coach Williams, was attending his daughter's wedding in Cincinnati. 18 years. 18 years of birthday parties where I was the only adult, school plays where I applauded alone, parent-teacher conferences where the chair beside me remained empty. I thought graduation would be different. I thought someone, anyone, would care enough to show up for Tyler. I walked back to my Honda Civic, the one with the dent in the passenger door from when Tyler learned to drive in the Walmart parking lot. He'd been mortified, but I'd laughed it off. Just gives it character, I'd said. The same thing I told myself about the mismatched furniture in our rental house, the generic brand groceries, the secondhand clothes I'd worn to work for 5 years. As assistant manager at the Grandview Hotel, I'd learned to make magic happen on impossible budgets. Wedding receptions where the flowers were past their prime but arranged with care. Business conferences where day-old pastries were presented like fresh delicacies. I'd become an expert at making less look like more, at spinning ordinary into special. But I couldn't manufacture a family that cared. The irony wasn't lost on me that Tyler was valedictorian. Perfect grades, full scholarship to Ohio State, accepted into their competitive music therapy program. While other kids partied or played video games, Tyler practiced piano and studied, driven by a maturity that broke my heart. He never complained about the hamburger helper dinners or the fact that his dad missed his birthday 3 years running. He just worked harder, as if excellence could fill the void left by absent people. I'd planned the perfect day anyway. Breakfast. At Martha's Diner, where Tyler always ordered chocolate chip pancakes. Photos by the town fountain where we'd thrown coins and made wishes when he was little. Graduation ceremony at 11, then lunch at Olive Garden, our splurge restaurant, the place where Tyler felt fancy when we shared endless breadsticks and he pretended to be a sophisticated food critic. My phone rang, startling me out of my thoughts. Tyler's name flashed on the screen, and I forced cheerfulness into my voice. Morning, sweetheart. Big day. Mom. His voice carried that careful tone he used when he was trying to protect my feelings. Dad called. He's not coming. I gripped the steering wheel tighter. I know, honey. Work emergency. And Grandma? And Grandpa? Grandpa's back is bothering him. Silence stretched between us, filled with everything we weren't saying. Tyler had inherited my ability to read between lines, to understand that can't usually meant won't when it came to our family. It's okay, Mom. We don't need them. We've got each other, right? Those words meant to comfort me, nearly undid me completely. My 18-year-old son consoling me about our family's neglect on his graduation day. when he should have been thinking about college and his future and all the amazing things ahead of him. Right, I managed. Always have, always will. I'm getting ready now. Emma's mom is giving us a ride to school for final preparations. Emma Thompson, Tyler's girlfriend, whose parents had welcomed him into their family with an ease that highlighted everything mine lacked. They'd invited us to their graduation brunch afterward, a kindness that made me grateful and ashamed in equal measure. I'll see you there, okay? Front row, center seat, cheering louder than anyone. He laughed, and the sound lifted some of the weight from my chest. Love you, Mom. Love you more. After hanging up, I sat in the hotel parking lot for another 15 minutes, watching the sunrise paint the sky in shades of pink and gold. I thought about calling in sick, spending the morning crying into my pillow like I had after the divorce was finalized. But Tyler needed me to be strong today. He needed me to show up even if no one else would. I walked into the Grandview Hotel through the employee entrance, past the kitchen where Rosa was already prepping for the breakfast rush. She looked up from the coffee machine and smiled, her face creasing with genuine warmth. Today's the day, Mija. Your boy graduates. Rosa Gutierrez had been more family to us than our actual family. She'd covered my shifts when Tyler was sick, brought us homemade tamales on Christmas Eve, celebrated every good grade, and consoled every disappointment. Her English was accented, but her heart was pure gold. He does. Valedictorian speech and everything. I wish I could be there. But you tell him Rosa is proud, see? I nodded, throat tight. He knows. We both know. My boss, Tom Bradley, was waiting by my office with a bouquet of flowers and a card. A gruff man in his 60s who pretended not to notice when I stayed late to avoid an empty house, but somehow always had extra work that needed doing when money was tight. For Tyler, he said gruffly. Tell him congratulations from all of us here. The card was signed by the entire hotel staff, people who barely knew my son but had heard me talk about him for years. They'd contributed money for a graduation gift, a nice watch that Tyler would treasure more than anything his father could have bought him. Tom, Don't get mushy on me, Mitchell. Save it for the ceremony. I spent the next 3 hours throwing myself into work, confirming catering arrangements and coordinating with housekeeping. Anything to keep my mind off the empty seats that would surround me in a few hours. But every time someone asked about Tyler's graduation, every time they mentioned family coming to town, the ache grew deeper. At 10:30, I changed in the employee bathroom, trading my hotel uniform for the navy dress I'd bought on sale at JCPenney. It was simple, appropriate, forgettable, everything I'd become over the years. I'd learned to blend into backgrounds, to take up minimal space, to need as little as possible. The drive to the community center took 12 minutes, but I stretched it to 20, taking the long way past Tyler's elementary school, past the park where he'd played Little League to crowds of one, past all the places where we'd built a life that was smaller than I'd dreamed but fuller than I'd expected. Cars lined the streets around the community center, families unloading flowers and balloons, grandparents walking slowly with pride radiating from every step. I parked 3 blocks away, giving myself time to compose my face into something that wouldn't embarrass Tyler. Inside, the transformation was remarkable. The space that hosted bingo nights and town halls had been dressed up. With fairy lights and burgundy fabric, the school colors draped elegantly around the small stage. Rows of folding chairs filled the main floor, with a section roped off for faculty and family. I found my seat, front row, as promised, and placed Tom's flowers on the chair beside me. Other families filled in around me, chattering excitedly about college plans and summer vacations. I smiled politely when spoken to, nodded at appropriate moments, felt increasingly invisible among their celebration. At exactly 11 o'clock, Principal Janet Moore took the podium. She was a kind woman who'd been understanding when I couldn't afford Tyler's yearbook or when his field trip payment came in 2 installments. She knew our story, knew the weight Tyler carried as my only support system, and she'd gone out of her way to make sure he never felt less than his classmates. Welcome, families and friends, to Riverside Central High School's class of 2024 graduation ceremony. The graduates filed in, caps and gowns rustling, faces glowing with accomplishment and anticipation. Tyler appeared in the third row, his dark hair neatly combed, his smile searching the crowd until he found me. He waved, a small gesture that sent tears streaming down my cheeks before I could stop them. I clapped louder than anyone when his name was called for academic awards. I cheered when he crossed the stage to receive his diploma, and when Principal Moore announced him as valedictorian, I stood up and applauded until my hands hurt, my voice hoarse from shouting his name. Tyler walked to the podium with confidence that belied his 18 years. He adjusted the microphone, cleared his throat, and began preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. A speech we'd practiced together in our living room the night before. Fellow graduates, faculty, and families, we stand here today not just as individuals, but as products of the communities that raised us. Some of us had traditional paths, others faced unique challenges. But we all learned that success isn't measured by who shows up to celebrate with you. It's measured by who you become when no one's watching. His eyes found mine across the crowd, and I knew those words were for me. For all the times I'd worked double shifts so he could go on field trips. For all the homework sessions at our kitchen table while I paid bills. For all the times we'd celebrated achievements with ice cream and pride because it was all we could afford. My mother taught me that family isn't always the people you're born to. Sometimes it's the people who choose to stay, who choose to believe in you, who choose to love you despite everything. Mom, this one's for you. The audience applauded, but I barely heard it over the sound of my own heartbeat. Tyler had just acknowledged everything I'd sacrificed, everything I'd given, everything I'd been to him. In that moment, every missed family gathering, every lonely holiday, every judgmental comment from relatives seemed worth it. As the ceremony concluded and families surged forward to take pictures, I hung back, letting Tyler have his moment with classmates and friends. I took photos with my phone, capturing his joy from a distance, content to witness rather than intrude. Mrs. Mitchell? I turned to find a tall man in an expensive suit approaching me. His face was familiar in that vague way that suggested celebrity, but I couldn't place him. He was probably someone's father, someone important from out of town. Yes? I'm Jackson Rivers. I couldn't help but notice you during the ceremony. The name clicked suddenly. Jackson Rivers, the Grammy-winning musician whose songs played in the hotel lobby. The man who'd headlined the Columbus Music Festival last month, whose face graced magazine covers and talk show appearances. Mr. Rivers, what are you doing here? He smiled, and it transformed his face from celebrity handsome to genuinely warm. I was in town for a meeting with the mayor about bringing music education programs to underserved communities. Principal Moore invited me to speak at the ceremony, but I arrived late. I watched from the back. I glanced around, confused. Tyler didn't mention she wanted it to be a surprise for the graduates. But honestly, I think I needed to be here more than they needed me to speak. Your son's speech was remarkable, and the way you cheered for him. That kind of pure joy is rare. Heat flooded my cheeks. I'm sorry if I was too loud. Don't apologize. That was the most genuine moment in the entire ceremony. Tell me, what's Tyler's plan for college? Ohio State, music therapy program. Full academic scholarship. The pride in my voice was unmistakable. Jackson nodded thoughtfully. Music therapy, that's incredible. It takes someone special to want to heal people through music. He is special, has been since he was little. When other kids wanted to be astronauts or firefighters, Tyler wanted to help people feel better. And you? What about your dreams? The question caught me off guard. No one had asked about my dreams in so long I'd almost forgotten I'd had them. I wanted to be a teacher once, elementary education. But life happened, and priorities shifted. Life has a way of doing that. But dreams don't disappear. They just get deferred. Before I could respond, Tyler appeared at my side, slightly out of breath from navigating the crowd. "Mom, Emma's parents want to know if we're ready for brunch." "Tyler," I said, "this is Jackson Rivers, the musician." Tyler's eyes widened. "No way! I have all your albums. Your song Second Chances got me through some really tough times." Jackson extended his hand. "Tyler Mitchell, valedictorian and future music therapist. Your mother tells me you're headed to Ohio State." "Yes, sir. I can't believe you're here. This is insane. Actually, I was hoping to talk to both of you about something. I run a foundation called Second Chances. We provide educational opportunities for single-parent families and fund music programs in underserved communities." I felt Tyler tense beside me, the way he always did when people started talking about charity or help. He'd inherited my pride, along with my stubbornness. "That's wonderful," I said carefully. "But we're doing fine. Tyler earned his scholarship." "I'm sure he did. This isn't about charity, Mrs. Mitchell. This is about opportunity. I'd like to offer Tyler a mentorship position with our foundation, paid internship, connections in the music therapy field, and the chance to help develop programs for other kids like him." Tyler looked at me, uncertainty written across his face. We'd learned to be wary of offers that seemed too good to be true. "There's more," Jackson continued. "Part of our family education initiative includes completing interrupted degrees for parents. Mrs. Mitchell, if you're interested, we'd fund your return to school to finish your teaching degree." The world tilted slightly. "I'm sorry, what?" Teaching is one of the most underpaid, undervalued professions in America. But teachers change lives. Your son is proof of that. You raised an exceptional young man while working full-time and managing everything alone. Those skills, that dedication, that heart, those are exactly what our schools need. I stared at him, waiting for the catch, the fine print, the moment when this generous offer would reveal itself as some kind of mistake. "Why?" I whispered. "Why us?" Jackson's expression grew serious. 3 weeks ago, I stayed at your hotel. I was having a terrible day, dealing with some personal issues, and I had what I now realize was a panic attack in the lobby. You appeared with a cup of tea and a quiet place to sit. You didn't recognize me, didn't want anything from me. You just saw someone struggling and helped. The memory surfaced slowly. A well-dressed man who'd looked overwhelmed, sitting alone in the corner of our lobby at midnight. I'd brought him chamomile tea and directed him to the quiet seating area, by the windows. You helped me find my center again that night. You reminded me why I started my foundation in the first place, to help people who help others, who give everything they have to make the world better. Tyler grabbed my hand. "Mom, this is incredible. You could finally finish school, become the teacher you always wanted to be." I don't know what to say. Say you'll think about it. Here's my card. My assistant Nicole will be in touch with all the details. No pressure, no strings attached, just an opportunity. He handed me a business card that felt substantial between my fingers. Real, legitimate. "Thank you," I managed. I never expected. The best things in life are usually unexpected. Congratulations on raising such an amazing young man, Mrs. Mitchell. The world needs more people like both of you. With that, he shook our hands and disappeared back into the crowd, leaving Tyler and me standing there holding our breath. "Mom?" Tyler said quietly. "Did that really just happen?" I looked down at the card in my hands, then at my son's hopeful face. For the first time in years, I felt something I'd almost forgotten existed. Possibility, Yeah, sweetheart. I think it did. As we walked toward Emma's family and their waiting brunch invitation, I realized something profound had shifted. I'd spent so many years feeling abandoned, feeling like Tyler and I were fundamentally alone in the world. But we weren't alone. We were enough. We were more than enough. And sometimes when you stop expecting people to show up and start showing up for yourself, the universe sends you exactly what you need in the most unexpected way possible. The empty chairs at Tyler's graduation had represented loss, abandonment, the family that chose not to be there. But sometimes empty chairs just make room for better people to sit down. Jackson Rivers had seen us, really seen us, when our own family had looked away. He'd recognized our worth when the people who were supposed to love us unconditionally had decided we weren't worth their time. As we celebrated Tyler's achievement with the Thompsons, as I watched him laugh with friends and plan for his future, I felt something I hadn't experienced in years, hope for my own dreams alongside his. That night, after Tyler had gone to bed and the house was quiet, I sat at our kitchen table with Jackson's business card and a cup of tea. I thought about the girl I'd been at 18, full of plans to change the world one classroom at a time. I thought about the woman I'd become, who'd changed just one life completely, Tyler's, and somehow that had been enough. But maybe, just maybe, it was time to dream bigger again. Maybe it was time to believe that someone who'd spent 18 years supporting everyone else's dreams deserved to chase her own. I picked up my phone and started typing an email to Nicole Barnes, Jackson's assistant. It was time to stop settling for empty chairs and start building a table where everyone who mattered had a seat, including me. The weeks following Tyler's graduation blurred together like watercolors in rain. I'd wake each morning expecting the whole Jackson Rivers encounter to reveal itself as an elaborate dream. But his business card remained real and solid on my nightstand next to the photo of Tyler in his cap and gown. Nicole Barnes called exactly when she said she would, 3 days after graduation. Her voice was professional but warm, like someone who'd been tasked with delivering good news and actually enjoyed the job. Mrs. Mitchell, I hope this isn't too early to call. Mr. Rivers asked me to reach out about the Second Chances Foundation opportunity. I was sitting in my car outside the grocery store, having just spent 40 minutes calculating whether I could afford name-brand cereal this week. The surreal nature of discussing life-changing opportunities while clutching a fistful of coupons wasn't lost on me. Of course. Though I have to admit, I'm still processing everything. That's completely understandable. These kinds of offers can feel overwhelming. Mr. Rivers particularly wanted me to emphasize that there's no pressure, no timeline. This opportunity will remain available whenever you feel ready to explore it. She explained the details with patience that felt genuine rather than scripted. The foundation would cover full tuition for my education degree completion at a state university of my choice. They'd provide a living stipend during my studies, enough to maintain our current lifestyle without the stress of working multiple jobs. Tyler's internship would pay better than most part-time positions available to college students, while giving him professional experience in music therapy administration. The only requirement, Nicole continued, is that after graduation, you commit to teaching in an underserved community for 3 years. The foundation partners with school districts that specifically need educators who understand challenges faced by single-parent families. After hanging up, I sat in the parking lot until my hands stopped shaking. 3 years of school, 3 years of being a student again instead of scrambling to make ends meet. 3 years of Tyler seeing his mother pursue her dreams instead of just facilitating his. That evening, Tyler and I sat on our back porch, sharing a pizza and watching the neighborhood kids play street hockey in the fading daylight. It was our tradition, these porch conversations where we solve the world's problems, or at least our small corner of it. So, Tyler said, picking pepperoni off his slice the way he had since childhood. Nicole called me too. I raised an eyebrow. Did she? The internship sounds incredible, Mom. I'd be working with their program development team, helping design music therapy initiatives for kids in foster care and low-income families. It's exactly what I want to do after graduation, but 4 years early. His excitement was infectious, the way he leaned forward and gestured with his pizza slice, sauce threatening to drip onto his jeans. This was Tyler at his most animated when he talked about helping people through music. But, he continued, voice becoming more careful, I keep waiting for the catch. People don't just give away opportunities like this, especially not to people like us. People like us. The phrase stung because I understood exactly what he meant. We were the family who shopped at thrift stores and clipped coupons and made decisions based on what we could afford rather than what we wanted. We were the people who were grateful for hand-me-downs and never asked for help because we'd learned that help often came with strings attached. I called your Aunt Jennifer today, I said, immediately regretting the words. Tyler's expression shifted, becoming guarded. Why? I thought maybe I should tell someone in the family about the opportunity, share the good news. And? I sighed, remembering the conversation that had left me feeling smaller than when it started. She thinks it's suspicious, asked what Jackson Rivers really wants from us, suggested that people like him don't help people like us without ulterior motives. People like him meaning successful, and people like us meaning poor? She didn't say it that directly, but yes. Tyler was quiet for a moment, pulling apart his pizza crust into small pieces. What do you think? I'd been asking myself the same question for days. Every instinct developed over 18 years of self-reliance told me to be suspicious, to look for the hidden costs, to protect us from disappointment. But another part of me, a part I'd thought had died somewhere between the divorce and the years of struggling alone, whispered that sometimes good things really did happen to good people. I think, I said slowly, that I'm scared. I'm scared to want this too much. I'm scared it's too good to be true. But I'm also scared of letting fear make decisions for us. I've been thinking about Emma's family, Tyler said, how they just accepted me from day one. Never questioned whether I belonged at their dinner, table, or their family events. They just made room. Emma's parents, the Thompsons, had indeed embraced Tyler with an ease that highlighted everything our extended family lacked. They included him in holiday celebrations, asked about his college plans, treated him like a son rather than a guest. Their acceptance had been so natural that it took Tyler months to realize not all families operated that way. Maybe, Tyler continued, we're not used to people wanting to help us because the people who should have been helping us checked out a long time ago. The observation was so mature, so insightful, that I felt the familiar ache of pride mixed with sadness. Tyler had grown up too fast, learning lessons about human nature that children shouldn't need to learn. You're probably right, I admitted, but that doesn't make this decision easier. What would you tell me if I came to you with this opportunity? The question stopped me short. If Tyler had been offered a full scholarship from a mysterious benefactor, what would my advice be? I'd probably research the foundation thoroughly, verify its legitimacy, maybe even demand references. But ultimately, if everything checked out, I'd encourage him to take the chance. I'd tell you to be careful, but not to let caution paralyze you. I'd tell you that opportunities like this are rare and that you deserved whatever good things came your way. Then why can't you apply that same logic to yourself? Because I'd learned that good things happen to other people, not to me. Because 18 years of being overlooked by family members and dismissed by Tyler's father had taught me to expect very little and to be grateful for basic decency. Because even when good things did happen, they were usually accompanied by complications or expectations that made them less good than they initially appeared. But I didn't say any of that to Tyler. Instead, I reached for his hand and squeezed it. You know what? Let's do more research. Let's treat this like the important Decision it is. But let's not let fear make the choice for us. Over the next several days, I threw myself into investigating the Second Chances Foundation with the thoroughness of a detective. I spent my lunch breaks at the hotel computer, reading articles about Jackson Rivers and his philanthropic work. I found interviews where he discussed growing up with a single mother who cleaned offices at night to put him through music school. I read testimonials from other foundation recipients, stories that sounded remarkably similar to ours. The foundation's website featured photos of scholarship recipients at graduation ceremonies, single mothers in caps and gowns, children whose after-school music programs had been funded by donor contributions. Everything looked legitimate, professional, and most importantly, real. Emma's mother, Linda Thompson, offered to make some calls on our behalf. As a bank executive, she had connections that could verify the foundation's financial stability and reputation. The enthusiasm in her voice when she offered made me realize how long it had been since someone in a position of authority had advocated for us. "Sarah, honey," she said when she called with her findings, "this foundation is the real deal. Top-rated Charity Navigator score, transparent financial reporting, board of directors that includes educators and business leaders. Jackson Rivers really does fund these programs from his own concerts and album sales. And there's no catch, no hidden requirements? None that I could find. They're particularly focused on educational opportunities for single parents and music programs for underserved kids. You and Tyler fit their mission perfectly." That evening, Tyler came home from his shift at the local bookstore with news of his own. He'd run into his high school music teacher, Ms. Foster, who'd heard through the teacher grapevine about Jackson Rivers' unexpected appearance at graduation. She said the principal and Mr. Rivers had a long conversation after the ceremony, Tyler reported. Apparently, he was so impressed with our school's music program that he's considering funding expansion of the arts curriculum. Really? Ms. Foster thinks his interest in our school might have started before graduation. Like maybe he researched the community after meeting you that night at the hotel. The possibility that Jackson Rivers had been impressed enough by our brief interaction to investigate our town, our school, our lives, felt both flattering and slightly overwhelming. Had he planned to offer us this opportunity before Tyler's speech, or had the graduation ceremony simply confirmed something he already suspected about our character? I called Nicole Barnes the next day and scheduled a meeting to discuss the details in person. She suggested meeting at a coffee shop in downtown Columbus, neutral territory where we could talk openly about expectations and concerns. The drive to Columbus took an hour, giving me time to rehearse questions and steel myself for potential disappointment. I'd dressed carefully, choosing my best professional outfit, the navy suit I typically reserved for hotel conferences or meetings with difficult vendors. Nicole was younger than I'd expected, probably early 30s, with an energy that suggested genuine passion for her work rather than professional obligation. She'd chosen a corner table at a quiet cafe and rose to greet me with a warm handshake. "Mrs. Mitchell, thank you so much for making the drive. I hope this setting is comfortable for you. Please, call me Sarah, and this is perfect. Thank you." She'd brought a folder thick with documents, but instead of diving immediately into paperwork, she leaned back in her chair and smiled. "Before we get to the technical details, I'd love to hear about your concerns. Mr. Rivers mentioned that you seemed hesitant during your initial conversation, which is perfectly understandable. It's just..." I paused, searching for words. That didn't make me sound ungrateful. In my experience, when something seems too good to be true, it usually is. I need to understand what the foundation gets in return for this investment. Nicole nodded approvingly. That's exactly the kind of question we want potential recipients to ask. The foundation's return on investment is entirely social. We measure success in terms of lives changed, communities strengthened, and cycles of poverty interrupted. She opened the folder and pulled out a graph showing foundation statistics over the past 5 years. Numbers of single parents who'd completed degrees, children who'd participated in music programs, partnerships with school districts in underserved areas. Sarah, can I ask you something? What do you think happens to communities when their brightest residents leave and never come back? The question caught me off guard. They struggle, I suppose. Lose their potential leaders. Exactly. Rural and small communities across America are losing their educated residents to big cities. Young people graduate high school and leave for college, but they don't return because there are no opportunities that match their education level. She pulled out another document, this one showing demographic trends in communities similar to Riverside. The Second Chances Foundation specifically targets participants who are likely to remain in or return to their home communities. Single parents with strong local ties, people who've already demonstrated commitment to their neighborhoods. When we invest in someone like you, we're investing in the entire community. Because I'd be likely to teach in local schools. Because you understand the challenges these communities face from personal experience. Because you've already proven that you can raise successful children despite limited resources. Because you represent hope for other single parents who think college might be impossible. I sipped my coffee, processing this perspective. I'd never thought of myself as someone worth investing in for community development purposes. I'd always been focused on immediate survival, on getting through each month, each year, each challenge as it arose. The foundation tracks our alumni carefully, Nicole continued. 93% of single parents who complete degrees through our program remain in their original communities or move to similar underserved areas. They become teachers, social workers, healthcare providers, business owners. They mentor other single parents. They create the kind of support networks they wish they'd had when they were struggling. And the children? Children of Second Chances recipients have college graduation rates 30% higher than the national average. They're more likely to pursue careers in public service, education, and healthcare. Tyler's already shown interest in music therapy for underserved populations, which aligns perfectly with our long-term goals. The conversation continued for 2 hours, covering everything from academic requirements to financial specifics to the foundation's selection process. Nicole answered every question with patience and detail that convinced me this wasn't a sales pitch, but a genuine opportunity being offered by people who understood exactly what they were doing and why. The application process is quite thorough, Nicole explained as our meeting wound down. We require academic transcripts, financial documentation, personal essays, and references. The entire process typically takes 8 to 10 weeks. And Tyler's internship would begin this fall, assuming you both decide to move forward. He'd start part-time while taking classes, then transition to full-time during summer breaks. The internship includes mentorship from Foundation alumni and exposure to various aspects of nonprofit management. Driving home, I felt something I hadn't experienced in years. Excitement about the future that went beyond simply hoping for Tyler's success. For the first time since my divorce, I was considering possibilities for my own life that extended beyond paying bills and surviving. Until Tyler graduated. That night, Tyler and I sat at our kitchen table with the foundation materials spread between us. The paperwork looked official and substantial, the kind of documents that represented real opportunities rather than too-good-to-be-true schemes. "So what do you think?" Tyler asked, running his finger along the edge of the application packet. I thought about the hotel room I'd cleaned that morning, left in shambles by guests who never looked me in the eye when I brought extra towels. I thought about the bills on my desk that required careful juggling to pay on time. I thought about the dreams I'd set aside so completely that I'd almost forgotten they'd ever existed. But more than that, I thought about the woman who'd offered Tyler a cup of tea when he was nervous before a school presentation, who'd encouraged him to pursue music therapy even when it seemed impractical, who'd somehow raised a young man capable of inspiring celebrities with his graduation speech. I think, I said slowly, that we've spent so long protecting ourselves from disappointment that we've forgotten how to recognize genuine opportunity. Does that mean you want to apply? It means I want to try. It means I want to believe that good things can happen to people like us. It means I'm tired of letting other people's abandonment determine what we think we deserve. Tyler grinned, the expression transforming his face from thoughtful teenager to excited young man ready to take on the world. Then let's do this, Mom. Let's apply and see what happens. As I filled out the first page of the application that night, writing my name in clear block letters, I realized that regardless of the outcome, something important had already changed. For years, I'd made decisions based on what I thought we could afford, what seemed realistic, what wouldn't risk, the fragile stability we'd built. But Tyler's graduation had taught me that stability built on diminished expectations wasn't really stability at all. It was just a smaller cage, one that felt safer because we'd adjusted to its limitations. The foundation wasn't offering charity. They were offering investment in potential they'd recognized in both Tyler and me. They were betting that given the right opportunities, we could become people who contributed to our community in ways that extended beyond simple survival. For the first time in 18 years, someone was asking not what we needed to get by, but what we could become if given the chance to flourish. And maybe, just maybe, it was time to find out. The application process consumed my every free moment over the following weeks. Each section required careful thought, detailed explanations, and a level of self-reflection I hadn't engaged in for years. The personal essay portion proved particularly challenging, asking me to articulate my educational goals and explain how the foundation's investment would benefit not just my family, but the broader community. I found myself writing and rewriting, paragraphs late into the night, Tyler often falling asleep on the couch while I worked at the kitchen table. The blank computer screen seemed to mock my attempts to capture 18 years of struggle and growth in a few pages. How do you explain the complexity of dreams deferred without sounding bitter? How do you convey determination without appearing desperate? Mom, you're overthinking this, Tyler said one evening, looking up from his own application materials. He'd been working on essays for the internship program, and his natural writing ability made the process look effortless. I just want to get it right. This isn't something I can afford to mess up. He closed his laptop and joined me at the table, reading over my shoulder at the paragraph I'd been struggling with for an hour. You know what's wrong with this? I looked at him expectantly. You're writing like you're apologizing for wanting something, like you need to justify why someone like you deserves this opportunity. His words hit deeper than I expected. He was right. Every sentence carried an undertone of gratitude mixed with self-doubt, as if I were trying to convince both the foundation and myself that I was worthy of their investment. Write it like you're talking to me, Tyler suggested. Tell them why you want to teach, not why you think you deserve to be taught. That night, I deleted everything and started over. Instead of focusing on our financial struggles or my sacrifices, I wrote about the moment I'd decided Tyler would graduate from high school. He'd been 8 years old, struggling with reading comprehension, and his teacher had suggested he might be better suited for vocational training rather than college preparation. I wrote about sitting with him every night, reading together, helping him discover that words weren't his enemy, but his gateway to understanding the world. I described watching him transform from a frustrated little boy into a confident young man who could inspire adults with his graduation speech. That experience had taught me something crucial about education. It wasn't just about transferring information or meeting curriculum standards. Real education happened when someone believed in a child's potential enough to persist through the difficult moments, to find alternative approaches when traditional methods failed, to celebrate small victories that led to bigger breakthroughs. This is what I want to bring to teaching, I concluded in my essay. The understanding that every child deserves someone who refuses to give up on them, who sees possibilities where others see limitations, who remembers that education is ultimately about hope. Tyler read the revised essay and nodded approvingly. Now that sounds like my mom. The financial documentation proved easier than expected, mainly because our situation was straightforward. Single income from hotel employment, minimal savings, no assets beyond our aging car and modest household belongings. The foundation required 3 years of tax returns, bank statements, and a detailed breakdown of monthly expenses. Laying out our finances in such detail felt invasive and humbling, but also oddly liberating. For so long, I'd managed our money with careful precision born of necessity, making every dollar stretch as far as possible. Seeing it documented officially reinforced that we weren't poor due to irresponsibility or lack of effort. We were simply living within the constraints of a single income that barely covered basic needs. Nicole had explained that the foundation looked favorably on applicants who demonstrated financial responsibility despite limited resources. They weren't interested in rescuing people from poor choices, but rather in providing opportunities to those who'd already proven their ability to manage with what they had. The reference letters required careful consideration. I needed 3 professional references and 2 personal ones, people who could speak to my character, work ethic, and potential for success in an education program. Tom Bradley at the hotel wrote a glowing recommendation that surprised me with its insight and warmth. He described my ability to handle difficult guests with patience, to train new employees with clarity and encouragement, and to maintain high standards even when understaffed or facing challenging circumstances. Sarah Mitchell doesn't just manage problems, he wrote. She finds solutions that leave everyone feeling heard and valued. These are exactly the qualities our schools need in teachers. Principal Moore provided another reference, discussing my involvement in Tyler's education and my advocacy for other students in challenging situations. She mentioned several instances where I'd volunteered for school events despite my work schedule, and my efforts to organize carpools and study groups for kids whose parents couldn't provide transportation or academic support. My former college advisor, Professor Elena Vasquez, still worked at the community college where I'd completed my associate degree. When I contacted her after nearly 20 years, she remembered me immediately and agreed to write a recommendation. Her letter focused on my academic performance and the potential she'd seen in me even as a young single mother juggling coursework with parenthood. Sarah was the kind of student who made teaching worthwhile, she wrote. She asked thoughtful questions, approached challenges with determination, and demonstrated the kind of genuine curiosity that makes for exceptional educators. The personal references came from Rosa at the hotel and Linda Thompson, Emma's mother. Both women had witnessed our family dynamics over several years and could speak to the kind of person I was when I thought no one was watching. Rosa's letter, translated with help from her granddaughter, was particularly touching. She described countless small kindnesses, times when I'd covered her shifts during family emergencies, brought soup when her husband was ill, or helped her navigate bureaucratic challenges with broken English. She wrote about watching Tyler grow up in the hotel break room, doing homework while I worked late shifts, and how proud she'd been at his graduation. Linda Thompson's reference was more formal, but equally powerful. As someone who'd observed our family through Tyler's relationship with Emma, she could provide an outsider's perspective on our values and priorities. She wrote about our grace under pressure, our emphasis on education and personal responsibility, and the love that was evident despite our limited resources. Sarah has raised a remarkable young man while facing challenges that would have overwhelmed many people, she concluded. She deserves the chance to pursue her dreams, not as charity, but as an investment in someone who will undoubtedly pay it forward to future generations. Submitting the completed application felt like jumping off a cliff. All our hopes, our carefully documented struggles, our character references, and financial transparency were now in the hands of strangers who would decide our future. The Foundation's timeline indicated we'd hear back within 6 to 8 weeks. a period that stretched ahead like an eternity. To distract ourselves during the waiting period, Tyler and I threw ourselves into planning for his first semester at Ohio State. We drove to Columbus on a Saturday to tour the campus and attend orientation sessions for incoming freshmen. Walking across the sprawling grounds, surrounded by historic buildings and bustling student activity, I felt a mix of pride and nervousness for Tyler. "It's huge," he said, looking slightly overwhelmed as we navigated between the music building and the student union. "You'll find your place," I assured him, remembering my own first day at community college. The scale had been much smaller, but the feeling of being an outsider in an academic environment was the same. We met with an advisor from the music therapy program, a young woman named Dr. Sandra Chen, who explained the curriculum with enthusiasm that reminded me why I'd once wanted to teach. She described the program's focus on practical application, the opportunities for internships at local hospitals and rehabilitation centers, and the strong track record of graduate placement in meaningful careers. "We're particularly excited about students like Tyler," she told us. "Young people who understand struggle and resilience have a different perspective on healing. They bring empathy that can't be taught in textbooks." Her words echoed something Jackson Rivers had said about Tyler's speech: the recognition that personal challenges could become professional strengths when channeled correctly. After the campus tour, we drove through neighborhoods near the university, looking at apartment complexes and assessing transportation options. The costs were higher than I'd hoped, even with Tyler's scholarship covering tuition and partial room and board. Without the foundation funding, we'd need to stretch our budget to dangerous limits. "We'll make it work," Tyler said, noticing my anxious calculations. "I can get a job on campus, maybe work in the music library or help with freshman orientation." His willingness to take on additional responsibilities while maintaining the academic excellence required for his scholarship reminded me again of how mature he'd become. But it also reinforced my determination to pursue the foundation opportunity. Tyler deserved to focus on his studies rather than worrying about finances. The weeks dragged on with no word from the foundation. I found myself checking email obsessively, jumping every time the phone rang. Tyler was equally anxious, though he tried to hide it better than I did. We'd developed a routine of not discussing the application directly, instead talking around it through references to "if we hear back," or "depending on what happens." Work provided some distraction, though the hotel was entering its busy summer season with an influx of tourists and business travelers. I found myself working longer hours, taking on extra shifts to save money for Tyler's college expenses and to keep my mind occupied. One particularly busy afternoon, while coordinating a wedding reception that had gone significantly over budget, my phone rang with an unfamiliar number. I almost let it go to voicemail, but something made me answer. Sarah Mitchell?" "Yes, this is Sarah." "This is Nicole Barnes from the Second Chances Foundation. Do you have a few minutes to talk?" My heart stopped. The wedding coordinator was gesturing frantically about some crisis with the floral arrangements. But suddenly none of that mattered. "Yes, absolutely. Let me just step outside." I walked quickly to the hotel parking lot, my hands shaking so badly I could barely hold the phone. "Sarah, I'm calling with good news. The review committee was extremely impressed with both your application and Tyler's internship submission. We'd like to offer you both positions in our program, beginning with the fall semester." I sat down hard on the concrete steps, not trusting my legs to support me. "I'm sorry, could you repeat that?" Nicole laughed gently. "You've been accepted. Full funding for your education degree completion, plus living stipend and support services. Tyler's been selected for our paid internship program. Congratulations." The word "accepted" echoed in my mind like a bell. After weeks of anxiety and uncertainty, the answer was yes. Someone had looked at our application, had seen our potential, had decided we were worth investing in. "Thank you," I managed, tears streaming down my face. "Thank you so much," The formal offer letters will arrive by mail within a few days, with all the details about orientation, course selection, and beginning dates. Sarah, the committee was particularly moved by your essay about persistence and hope in education. One member said it reminded her why she'd become a teacher herself. After hanging up, I sat on those hotel steps for 10 minutes, letting the reality sink in. Then I called Tyler, who was working at the bookstore. "Mom, is everything okay?" "You sound weird." "Tyler, we got in, both of us. The foundation accepted us." The silence stretched so long, I thought we'd been disconnected. Then I heard him talking to someone in the background, asking if he could take a break. "Mom, are you serious? We both got accepted?" "Yes. Full funding, everything Nicole promised. You're going to Ohio State, and I'm going back to school to become a teacher." "I can't believe it. This is really happening." "It's really happening." That evening, we celebrated with dinner at Olive Garden, our traditional special occasion restaurant. Tyler ordered the tour of Italy, splurging because the foundation assistance meant we no longer had to save every dollar for his college expenses. I found myself crying happy tears between bites of breadstick, overwhelmed by the magnitude of how our lives were about to change. "What's the first thing you want to study?" Tyler asked. "Child development, I think. I want to understand how kids learn, especially kids who struggle like you did in elementary school. And I want to focus on trauma-informed music therapy, working with kids who've been through difficult situations." We talked about our plans until the restaurant began closing around us, both of us giddy with possibility and relief. The weight I'd carried for 18 years, the constant worry about finances and Tyler's future, had lifted so completely that I felt almost dizzy without it. Driving home, Tyler turned to me with a serious expression. "Mom, I need to tell you something." My stomach clenched. "What's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong. I just want you to know that you've been the best mother I could have asked for. Even when Dad left, even when everyone else gave up on us, you never stopped believing things could get better." "Tyler, let me finish. I know you think you were just doing what you had to do, but you weren't. You were choosing every day to be hopeful, to invest in my future, to sacrifice your own dreams so I could have mine. That's not obligation, Mom. That's love." His words hung in the air between us. 18 years of unspoken gratitude and recognition finally given voice. "And now," he continued, "you get to chase your dreams too. You get to become the teacher you always wanted to be. You get to help other kids the way you helped me." That night, I called my parents to share the news. My mother answered on the third ring, sounding distracted as usual. "Sarah, is everything all right? You don't usually call on weeknights." "Everything's wonderful, actually. I have some exciting news to share." I explained about the foundation, the scholarship opportunity, Tyler's internship, and our acceptance into the program. My mother listened with what sounded like polite interest rather than enthusiasm. "That's nice, dear, though I hope you've researched this organization thoroughly. These celebrity charities can be unpredictable. Mom, this is a legitimate foundation with excellent ratings and a proven track record. I'm sure you've done your homework. It just seems almost too convenient, Tyler meeting this musician right when you needed help with college expenses." Her skepticism deflated some of my excitement, but I forced myself to stay positive. Sometimes good timing is just good timing. Sometimes people who've been through struggles want to help others in similar situations. "Well, I hope it works out. Your father sends his regards." After hanging up, I felt the familiar disappointment of my family's lukewarm response to our achievements. But this time, instead of dwelling on their lack of enthusiasm, I focused on the people who had celebrated with us. Nicole's genuine excitement when she called with the news. Tom Bradley's proud smile when I told him I could finally pursue teaching. Rosa's tears of joy when she heard about our acceptance. The following week brought official acceptance letters, with detailed information about orientation schedules, course requirements, and program expectations. Reading through the materials, I felt a combination of excitement and nervousness that reminded me of my first day at community college decades earlier. The foundation had arranged for both Tyler and me to meet with academic advisors before the semester began. They'd also assigned us mentor families, foundation alumni who could provide guidance and support during our transitions. Tyler's energy was infectious as he prepared for his dual role as Ohio State freshman and foundation intern. He spent hours researching music therapy techniques, reading about trauma-informed care, and corresponding with other interns who would be starting the program with him. "Did you know," he said one evening while buried in foundation materials, "that music therapy can help kids who've experienced abuse learn to express emotions they can't put into words?" I didn't know that, but it makes sense. It's like what you always told me about books opening doors to understanding. Music can do the same thing, especially for kids who don't trust adults enough to talk openly. His passion for the field deepened my own excitement about returning to education. We were both embarking on careers focused on helping children overcome challenges, approaching the same goal from different angles. As summer progressed and our start dates approached, I began the process of transitioning my responsibilities at the hotel. Tom had hired my replacement, a young woman with hospitality experience who seemed capable but nervous about taking on the management role. "You'll be missed," Tom told me during one of our final scheduling meetings. "This place won't be the same without you. You'll do fine, and I'll still be in town, just pursuing different dreams." "About time," he said gruffly. "You've got too much potential to spend your whole life changing sheets and dealing with difficult guests." His words meant more than he probably realized. For years, I'd seen my hotel work as necessary but temporary, something to endure until Tyler graduated and I could figure out what came next. But Tom's recognition that I had larger potential, that I was capable of more than just survival, validated something I'd almost stopped believing about myself. On my last day at the Grandview Hotel, Rosa organized a small goodbye party in the Thai employee break room. The entire staff had contributed to a gift card for school supplies and a card signed by everyone, including guests who'd gotten to know me over the years. "You're going to be a wonderful teacher," Rosa said, hugging me tightly. "Those kids, they're going to be so lucky." "Thank you for everything, Rosa, for being family when we needed it most. Family isn't just blood, mija. Family is people who choose to love you." Her words echoed something Tyler had said in his graduation speech about family being those who choose to stay. The foundation, Tom, Rosa, the Thompsons, all of them had chosen to invest in our success when our biological family had chosen distance and doubt. As I cleaned out my desk and turned in my keys, I felt a mixture of sadness and anticipation. The hotel had been my anchor for 5 years, providing stability and routine when everything else felt uncertain. But it had also represented limitation, the boundary of what I thought was possible for someone like me. Walking to my car with a box of personal items and good wishes from colleagues, I realized this wasn't just a career change. It was a fundamental shift in how I saw myself and what I believed I deserved. For the first time in 18 years, I wasn't just reacting to circumstances or making the best of a difficult situation. I was choosing my future deliberately, pursuing dreams I'd thought were permanently out of reach. The foundation hadn't just offered financial support. They'd offered something more valuable. The reminder that my aspirations mattered, that my potential was worth developing, that investment in my education could create returns far beyond personal satisfaction. Tomorrow, Tyler and I would drive to Columbus for orientation week. We'd begin a new chapter that neither of us could have imagined 6 months earlier. But tonight, I sat on our back porch one last time as a hotel employee and mother supporting her son's dreams, and looked ahead to becoming a student again myself, preparing to help other children find their own paths to success. The orientation. Week at Ohio State buzzed with nervous energy and fresh possibilities. Tyler and I arrived on campus together, both carrying everything we owned that mattered in the back of our Honda Civic. The parking lot outside Lincoln Tower was chaos. Families unpacking SUVs loaded with mini fridges and designer comforters. Tearful goodbyes between parents and children who'd never been apart for more than a week. I watched other mothers hugging their freshmen, offering last-minute advice and promises to call every Sunday. The difference was that while they were saying goodbye, Tyler and I were beginning together. The foundation had arranged for us to have adjacent dorm rooms in Lincoln Tower, a special accommodation that acknowledged the unique nature of our situation. "It feels weird, doesn't it?" Tyler said, balancing a box of his music equipment. "Like we're both starting over at the same time. Good weird or bad weird?" He considered this, looking around at the bustling campus. "Hopeful weird. Like, we're finally moving towards something instead of just away from things." Our foundation advisor, Dr. James Morrison, met us in the lobby. He was a man in his early 50s, with graying temples and the kind of calm presence that suggested he'd guided many anxious families through this transition. He'd been a Second Chances recipient himself 15 years earlier, completing his doctorate in social work after raising 3 children as a single father. "Welcome to Ohio State," he said, shaking both our hands warmly. "I know this feels overwhelming, but I promise you're exactly where you're supposed to be." He walked us through the orientation schedule, explaining that foundation recipients had their own support network alongside the university's standard programs. There would be weekly check-ins, study groups with other foundation scholars, and career counseling specifically designed for people making major life transitions. "The foundation doesn't just fund education," Dr. Morrison explained as we rode the elevator to our floors. "We're invested in your long-term success, which means providing support systems that understand the unique challenges you face." Tyler's room was on the 6th floor, mine on the 7th. As we explored the small but adequate spaces that would be our homes for the next year, I felt a surreal mixture of excitement and trepidation. At 42, I was about to become a college student again, sharing dining halls and libraries with people young enough to be my children. "Mom," Tyler called from his room, "come look at this." I found him standing at his window, which offered a view of the Oval, the heart of campus where students gathered between classes. Even in late August, the space was filled with people, reading under trees, playing frisbee, or simply walking with the purposeful energy of those pursuing their dreams. "We made it," he said quietly. "We actually made it here." The first week passed in a blur of course registration, campus tours, and foundation meetings. Tyler dove into his classes with characteristic determination, balancing his freshman course load with orientation for the Second Chances internship program. I found myself slightly more overwhelmed, adjusting to academic demands I hadn't faced in 20 years, while navigating a social environment where I was clearly out of place. My education. Classes were small and intensive, filled with passionate graduate students and career changers like myself. The professor for my child development course, Dr. Angela Rodriguez, had specifically requested several foundation scholars for her roster, believing that life experience enhanced theoretical learning. Traditional students often struggle to understand why some children have difficulty focusing or trusting authority, she said during our first class. Those of you who've raised children or faced educational challenges yourselves bring perspectives that can't be found in textbooks. Her words reminded me of something Jackson Rivers had said about Tyler's speech. That personal experience with struggle created empathy that couldn't be taught. I began to see my years of single parenthood not as obstacles to overcome in becoming an educator, but as qualifications that prepared me for the realities of modern classrooms. Tyler's internship with the foundation proved equally transformative. He worked 20 hours a week with their program development team, helping design music therapy initiatives for children in foster care. His supervisor, Dr. Lisa Park, was a music therapy professor who'd grown up in the foster system herself. "Tyler's insights are remarkable," she told me during a parent meeting. "He understands instinctively how to reach kids who've learned not to trust adults. His own experience with instability gives him credibility that older clinicians sometimes lack." The foundation had also arranged for us to participate in their mentorship program, pairing us with alumni families who'd successfully completed similar transitions. Our mentors were the Johnsons, Robert, who'd become a high school principal after earning his education degree through second chances, and Maria, who'd started a nonprofit focused on job training for single mothers. "The hardest part isn't the coursework," Maria told me over coffee at the campus union. "It's learning to believe you belong here. For years, you've defined yourself by what you can't do or don't have. Now you have to learn to see yourself as someone capable of helping others." Her words hit home because I'd been struggling with exactly that issue. In study groups, I found myself deferring to younger classmates, assuming they knew more because they'd never left the academic world. In discussions, I hesitated to share insights drawn from personal experience, worried they weren't scholarly enough. "You know what changed everything for me?" Maria continued. "Realizing that the kids I'd eventually teach needed someone who understood struggle from the inside. They needed someone who knew what it felt like to worry about basic needs, to feel excluded, to wonder if they were smart enough or good enough." Dr. Morrison had warned us about this during orientation, calling it imposter syndrome and explaining that most foundation recipients experienced it to some degree. He'd arranged group counseling sessions specifically to address these feelings, bringing together students who shared similar backgrounds and fears. During one of these sessions, I met Elena Vasquez, a grandmother in her 60s who was completing her nursing degree after raising 5 children alone. She'd applied to the foundation after her youngest graduated high school, determined to pursue the medical career she'd abandoned decades earlier. "My daughter keeps asking why I'm doing this now," Elena shared with the group. "She says I should be thinking about retirement, not starting over. But I tell her, I've got at least 20 good years left. Why should I spend them wondering what if?" Another member, David Chen, had left his corporate job to become a social worker after his son struggled with addiction and recovery. He'd realized that his experience navigating the complex systems of treatment and support gave him unique qualifications for helping other families in crisis. "People keep treating this like it's brave or unusual," David said. "But to me, it feels like the most practical thing I've ever done. Why wouldn't I use everything I've learned to help others going through the same struggles?" These conversations helped me reframe my own story. I wasn't an older student trying to catch up with younger, more naturally academic peers. I was an experienced professional bringing valuable perspectives to a field that desperately needed people who understood real-world challenges. Tyler's adjustment seemed smoother than mine, perhaps because 18-year-olds are more adaptable, or because his internship gave him immediate purpose beyond just taking classes. He formed study groups with other foundation interns, young people who shared his passion for using their experiences to help others. "We're planning a music therapy workshop for kids in the local foster system," he told me excitedly one evening. "Dr. Park thinks it could become a regular program if it goes well." Watching him discuss techniques for building trust with traumatized children, seeing his confidence grow as he found his professional voice, filled me with pride that went beyond typical parental satisfaction. Tyler wasn't just succeeding academically, he was discovering his calling and developing the skills to pursue it effectively. Midway through the semester, I received an unexpected phone call from my sister Jennifer. We'd spoken only briefly since graduation, our relationship still strained by her inability to attend Tyler's ceremony and her skepticism about the foundation opportunity. "Sarah, I hope I'm not calling at a bad time." "Not at all. I just finished studying for a child psychology exam." "An exam?" "Right, you're back in school." Her tone was carefully neutral. "How's that going?" It's challenging, but wonderful. I'm learning so much about child development and educational theory. It's fascinating how much we understand now about how kids learn compared to when I was in school. That's great. Look, I'm calling because I wanted to apologize. About Tyler's graduation, about my reaction to your scholarship news. I realize I wasn't very supportive. I sat down slowly, surprised by her directness. What's changed? Emma Thompson's mother, Linda. We ran into each other at the grocery store, and she mentioned how proud she is of you and Tyler. She said the foundation had featured you in their newsletter as an example of successful recipients. The newsletter feature had been a surprise to me as well. The foundation liked to showcase families who were thriving in their programs, and apparently our story of a single mother and son pursuing complementary careers in helping professions had resonated with donors and other recipients. Linda couldn't stop talking about how Tyler is mentoring younger kids in the foster system and how you're already making an impact in your education classes. She said you're both proving that second chances can change entire communities. I processed this, recognizing that Jennifer's apology was motivated partly by outside validation of our choices. It would have meant more if she'd supported us before others told her she should, but I appreciated her effort to rebuild our relationship. Jennifer, I understand why you were skeptical. This whole situation seems almost too good to be true, even to me sometimes. But it is true, and you're both thriving. I was wrong to question it, wrong to not be there when you needed family support. We talked for another 20 minutes, tentatively beginning to repair the damage that years of distance and misunderstanding had created. Jennifer even asked if she could visit sometime, maybe take Tyler and me out to dinner to celebrate our achievements properly. After hanging up, I felt a mixture of relief and sadness. While I was glad Jennifer wanted to reconnect, I also realized how much I'd changed during our months of estrangement. I no longer needed her approval or validation to feel confident about our choices. The foundation, our mentors, and our own experiences had provided something more valuable than family acceptance, genuine belief in our potential. As the semester progressed, both Tyler and I found our rhythms in our new academic lives. I discovered I had a particular talent for educational assessment, understanding how to identify learning challenges and develop strategies to address them. My professors began encouraging me to consider specializing in special education or educational psychology. Tyler's work with the foundation expanded beyond his initial internship duties. He'd become something of a liaison between the music therapy department and the Second Chances programs, helping to develop partnerships that benefited both organizations. Dr. Park had already mentioned the possibility of him continuing with research projects during summer break. I feel like I'm becoming who I was always supposed to be, he told me one evening as we studied together in my room. Does that make sense? Perfect sense. I feel the same way. It was true. For years, I'd defined myself primarily in relation to others. Tyler's mother, the hotel's assistant manager, the divorced woman, the struggling single parent. Now, for the first time, I was developing an identity based on my own aspirations and capabilities. The foundation arranged several opportunities for recipients to share their experiences with potential applicants and donors. Tyler and I participated in a panel discussion for single parents considering returning to education, sharing both the challenges and rewards we'd encountered. The hardest part, I told the audience, isn't the coursework or the time management. It's learning to believe you deserve this opportunity. For so long, you're focused on just getting by, just surviving until tomorrow. Taking the step to pursue your dreams feels selfish or unrealistic. But once you start, Tyler added, you realize that investing in yourself isn't selfish at all. When you're fulfilled and growing, you become a better parent, a better community member, a better person. Overall, an older woman in the audience raised her hand. But what about the risks? What if you fail? What if you can't handle the academic demands after being out of school for so long? I understood her fear because I'd felt it myself. The foundation provides incredible support systems specifically designed for people in our situations. But more importantly, you have to ask yourself, what's the risk of not trying? What's the cost of spending the rest of your life wondering what if? After the panel, several people approached us with questions about the application process and their own concerns about returning to education. A woman named Susan, probably, in her late 30s, told us she'd been considering applying for 2 years, but kept finding reasons to postpone. My ex-husband says I'm too old to start over, that I should be focusing on more practical concerns, she confided. With respect, Tyler said, your ex-husband's opinion about your potential shouldn't carry much weight, should it? If he understood your worth, maybe he wouldn't be an ex. Susan laughed at that, and I saw some of the tension leave her shoulders. Sometimes validation from people who've walked similar paths carries more weight than advice from those who've never faced such challenges. As the end of our first semester approached, Tyler and I both felt a sense of accomplishment that went beyond grades or academic achievements. We'd proven to ourselves that major life changes were possible, that dreams deferred weren't necessarily dreams destroyed. I maintained a 3.8 GPA while beginning to develop my undergraduate thesis on trauma-informed teaching practices. Tyler had been invited to present his research on music therapy techniques for foster children at a regional conference. More importantly, we'd both found communities of people who valued our experiences and supported our growth. The foundation hosted a holiday celebration for all local recipients and their families. Jackson Rivers appeared as a special guest, greeting everyone personally and listening to updates on individual progress. When he reached Tyler and me, his smile was genuinely warm. "I hear you're both exceeding expectations," he said. "We're trying our best," I replied. "No, you're doing something much more important than that. You're proving that second chances can become first opportunities. Your success inspires other families to believe change is possible." He was right. Several new applicants had mentioned our story during their interviews, saying our example had encouraged them to pursue their own educational goals. The foundation had asked Tyler and me to serve as informal ambassadors, making ourselves available to answer questions from potential recipients. During winter break, we returned to Riverside for a brief visit. The town looked smaller somehow, our old life there feeling like something we'd outgrown rather than something we missed. We had dinner with Rosa and Tom, sharing photos from campus and stories about our classes. "Look at you two," Rosa said proudly. "I always knew you were destined for bigger things." Tom, ever practical, wanted to know about our financial stability and long-term career prospects. When I explained the job placement rates for Foundation alumni and the demand for qualified teachers in underserved districts, he nodded approvingly. "You've got a good thing going," he concluded. "Don't let anyone tell you different." We also visited Tyler's high school, where Principal Moore had arranged for us to speak with current students about college opportunities and perseverance through challenges. Many of the kids came from single-parent homes or families struggling financially, and they seemed inspired to see local examples of people who'd successfully transitioned from survival to growth. "The most important thing," Tyler told them, "is to remember that your current circumstances don't define your ultimate potential. My mom and I spent years just trying to get by, but we never stopped believing that things could get better." A young girl raised her hand. "But how do you know if you're smart enough for college?" I answered this one. Smart enough isn't the right question. The right question is, are you willing to work hard enough? Are you willing to ask for help when you need it? Are you willing to persist through difficult moments? After our presentation, several students approached us privately with questions about the foundation and college preparation. One girl, clearly struggling to hold back tears, told us that seeing our success gave her hope that her mother's sacrifices might eventually lead to something better. Driving back to campus after the holiday break, Tyler and I reflected on how much our perspective on our hometown had changed. "It's not that Riverside is bad," Tyler said. It's just that we've learned there's so much more possible than what we could see from there. And maybe that's exactly why we needed to leave. Sometimes you have to step outside your current reality to understand what else is available. The spring semester brought new challenges and opportunities. I began my student teaching placement at a Columbus elementary school that served mainly low-income families. Many of the children reminded me of Tyler at that age, bright but struggling, carrying burdens that made traditional academic approaches ineffective. My supervising teacher, Ms. Patricia Williams, had specifically requested a foundation scholar for student teaching. She'd grown up in similar circumstances and understood the value of educators who could relate to students' challenges from personal experience. These kids need to see that someone like them can succeed, she explained during our first meeting. They need teachers who understand that missing breakfast affects concentration, that moving frequently disrupts learning, that sometimes acting out is really fear disguised as defiance. Working with her students confirmed everything I'd hoped about teaching. I found myself naturally connecting with children who struggled academically or socially, understanding their needs in ways that surprised even experienced teachers. One little boy, Marcus, reminded me strongly of Tyler, intelligent but frustrated, acting out because he couldn't express his confusion with traditional learning methods. I worked with Marcus individually during lunch periods, helping him develop organizational skills and alternative study techniques. When his grades began improving and his behavior problems decreased, Ms. Williams asked me to present my approach to the entire teaching staff. Sarah's methods aren't revolutionary, she told the faculty meeting. They're simply informed by real understanding of what these children face at home. She doesn't see problems to be fixed, but children to be supported. Meanwhile, Tyler's internship had evolved into something approaching a full research position. His work developing music therapy programs for foster children had attracted attention from professors and practitioners throughout the region. He'd been invited to co-author a paper on trauma-informed musical interventions for publication in a professional journal. I think I want to pursue a PhD after finishing my undergraduate degree, he told me one evening. Dr. Park thinks I could develop this research into a doctoral dissertation. The idea of Tyler continuing his education to the highest levels filled me with pride and excitement. But more than that, I was thrilled to see him finding his passion so early, developing expertise that could help thousands of children over the course of his career. As our first year at Ohio State neared its end, both Tyler and I began looking ahead to the future with confidence we'd never felt before. I'd been offered a summer internship with the Columbus City Schools, working on curriculum development for trauma-informed teaching practices. Tyler would spend the summer as a research assistant while continuing his foundation internship. Next year feels less scary, I admitted to Dr. Morrison during one of our regular check-ins. I feel like I belong here now. That's exactly what we hope to hear, he replied. The foundation's investment isn't just financial. We're investing in your confidence, your sense of possibility, your belief in your own potential. He was right. The money for tuition and living expenses had been crucial, but the psychological support was equally important. For the first time in 18 years, Tyler and I weren't just surviving or reacting to circumstances. We were actively building the lives we wanted, developing skills that would let us help others facing similar challenges. The final week of classes brought a mixture of exhaustion and exhilaration. I'd completed my first full academic year with a 3.9 GPA while developing teaching philosophies that integrated personal experience with theoretical knowledge. Tyler had not only maintained his academic scholarship requirements, but had been selected for advanced research opportunities typically reserved for graduate students. During the Foundation's end-of-year celebration, Jackson Rivers again addressed all the local recipients. His words seemed directed personally at each of us. A year ago, many of you weren't sure you belonged in academic settings. You questioned whether you were smart enough, young enough, prepared enough to succeed. Tonight, you've proven that the Most important qualification for success isn't age or background or previous educational achievement. It's the willingness to grow, to persist, to believe in your own potential even when others doubt it. He paused, scanning the room filled with people who'd transformed their lives through education and determination. But your success isn't just personal. Every paper you write, every child you teach, every life you touch creates ripples that extend far beyond your immediate circumstances. You're proving that second chances can become first opportunities, that investment in people who've faced challenges pays dividends for entire communities. As I looked around the room at my fellow foundation recipients, Elena, who would soon be working as a pediatric nurse, David, who'd landed a position with Child Protective Services, dozens of others who'd used this opportunity to build meaningful careers, I understood what Jackson Rivers meant about ripple effects. We weren't just individual success stories. We were part of a movement that challenged assumptions about who could succeed in higher education, who belonged in professional roles, who deserved investment and support. Our achievements opened doors for others who might otherwise think college was beyond their reach. That night, Tyler and I sat in my dorm room, planning our summer schedules and discussing the year ahead. We'd both changed dramatically since that graduation day when we'd sat alone while my family chose to stay home. But the most significant change wasn't in our circumstances or opportunities. The most significant change was in how we saw ourselves. We were no longer the overlooked family hoping for scraps of attention from relatives who couldn't be bothered to show up. We were scholars, researchers, future educators who'd earned our places through merit and determination. "You know what I realized today?" Tyler said, lying on my small dorm room carpet and staring at the ceiling. "What's that?" "Dad missing my graduation was the best thing that could have happened to us." I looked at him sharply. "What do you mean?" "If he'd shown up, if our family had been there, we might have felt like we had enough support already. We might not have been as open to new opportunities. Sometimes you have to lose the people who don't value you to make room for the people who do." His words carried wisdom that surprised me coming from an 18-year-old. But then again, Tyler had always been mature beyond his years. He was right, though. Our family's absence from his graduation hadn't been abandonment. It had been liberation from expectations and relationships that had never served us well. Jackson Rivers, the Second Chances Foundation, Ohio State, our new academic communities. All of these had entered our lives specifically because we were open to new possibilities, unencumbered by family relationships that demanded we stay small and grateful for whatever attention we could get. "I love you for everything you've done for me," Tyler continued. "But I'm also grateful for everything you didn't do. You didn't make excuses for people who treated us badly. You didn't teach me to settle for less than I deserved. You didn't let our circumstances become our identity." As I prepared for bed that night, I thought about the empty chairs at Tyler's graduation that had made room for Jackson Rivers to appear in our lives. Sometimes loss creates space for unexpected gifts. Sometimes the people who abandon you do you a favor by revealing who they really are, freeing you to find your tribe among those who recognize your worth. Tyler and I had discovered that we didn't need family approval to pursue our dreams. We didn't need financial abundance to access excellent education. We didn't need perfect circumstances to create meaningful lives. All we needed was the courage to believe we deserved better and the persistence to keep working toward it. The Second Chances Foundation had given us more than money for school. They'd given us permission to dream bigger than survival, to see ourselves as people capable of contributing rather than just enduring. 3 years later, I stood in front of my own classroom for the first time as a certified teacher, watching 28 third graders file in for the first day of school. The morning sunlight streamed through windows I decorated with inspirational quotes and colorful learning displays, creating the kind of warm, welcoming environment I'd always dreamed of providing for children who needed it most. Lincoln Elementary. School in Columbus served predominantly low-income families, many headed by single parents working multiple jobs to make ends meet. It was exactly where I wanted to be, exactly the kind of community I understood from the inside out. The principal, Dr. Sandra Williams, had specifically recruited me after hearing about my student teaching success and foundation background. "We need teachers who get it," she'd said during my interview. "Teachers who understand that a child's potential isn't determined by their zip code or family structure. Teachers who see possibilities where others see problems." As my students settled into their seats, I noticed the familiar signs I'd learned to recognize. Marcus, small for his age with clothes that had seen better days, clutched a worn backpack and avoided eye contact. Sophia, whose intake form mentioned she lived with her grandmother, kept looking toward the door as if expecting someone to come. Take her away. Jerome, tall and serious, had that hyper-alert posture of a child who'd learned too early to scan for potential threats. These were the kids everyone said were challenging, the ones who required extra patience and different approaches. To me, they were simply children who'd experienced adult problems and needed someone to see past their defenses to their incredible potential. "Good morning, scholars," I said, using the term I'd adopted from my mentor teacher. "Welcome to our classroom. This is going to be an amazing year, and I'm honored to be your teacher." A hand shot up immediately. "Ms. Mitchell, why did you call us scholars?" "Because that's what you are," I replied. "A scholar is someone who learns, who asks questions, who grows their mind every day. That's exactly what we're going to do together this year." The morning proceeded with introductions and classroom expectations, but I could see these children processing everything through filters of previous disappointments and broken promises. They'd been in classrooms before where teachers started enthusiastic, but grew frustrated when traditional methods didn't work. They'd learned to protect themselves by not getting too invested in adult promises of support and encouragement. During lunch, I called Tyler, who was now in his final year at Ohio State, and had been accepted to several PhD programs in music therapy. "First day teaching your own class," he said, and I could hear the pride in his voice. "How does it feel?" Terrifying and perfect at the same time. These kids remind me so much of you at that age. Bright but guarded, needing someone to see past the surface to who they really are. "They're lucky to have you, Mom. You're going to change their lives." "We're going to change each other's lives," I corrected. "That's how real teaching works." Tyler had been right about that. Over the past 3 years, he'd grown into a confident young researcher whose work was already making a difference in how professionals approached music therapy with traumatized children. His undergraduate thesis had been published in a peer-reviewed journal, and he'd received recognition from the American Music Therapy Association for innovative work with foster youth. More importantly, he'd maintained his compassionate center while developing professional expertise. He still spent volunteer hours working with kids in crisis, but now he brought theoretical knowledge to complement his intuitive understanding of their needs. The foundation had kept track of our progress, as they did with all their recipients. Jackson Rivers had attended Tyler's graduation the previous spring, delivering a keynote address that brought many in the audience to tears. "Education isn't just about acquiring knowledge," he'd said that day. "It's about transformation. The students graduating today aren't just earning degrees. They're proving that circumstances don't define destiny, that second chances can become first opportunities. That investment in human potential creates returns beyond any financial measure." Tyler had been selected as the student speaker representing foundation recipients, and his address had focused on the ripple effects of opportunity. He'd talked about how one person believing in his potential had led to 2 people pursuing education, which had led to programs that would benefit hundreds of children over the coming years. As I settled into my teaching routine over the first few weeks, I began to understand what Tyler meant about ripple effects. Every strategy I used that came from personal experience, every moment of patience that stemmed from remembering my own frustrations as a struggling student, every expectation I set based on knowing these children were capable of more than others imagined. All of it created small changes that would compound over time. Marcus, the anxious little boy who'd reminded me of Tyler, began to shine when I introduced music into our daily routine. He had perfect pitch and could pick out melodies by ear, talents that had gone unrecognized in previous classrooms focused solely on traditional academic measures. "Ms. Mitchell," he said one afternoon during our music time, "could we write songs about what we're learning in science?" Within a week, we were composing songs about the water cycle, plant growth, and animal habitats. Marcus became my unofficial co-teacher during these sessions, helping other students find their musical voices while reinforcing academic content through creative expression. Sophia, initially withdrawn and fearful, began to blossom when she realized our classroom operated differently from her previous educational experiences. I made home visits, something many teachers had stopped doing due to time constraints, and met her grandmother, a tired but loving woman who apologized for being too overwhelmed to help much with homework. "Don't apologize," I told her. "You're doing an incredible job raising Sophia. My role is to support what you're already doing, not to judge or add pressure." I started sending home learning packets designed for busy guardians, activities that could be completed during car rides to work or while waiting at laundromats. I created a homework buddy system where students could call each other for support. Most importantly, I made it clear that a child's value wasn't determined by their family's ability to provide traditional educational support. Jerome, the hyper-vigilant boy who scanned for threats, gradually relaxed as he realized our classroom was genuinely safe. He had a gift for noticing details others missed, a skill that translated beautifully into reading comprehension and creative writing. "Jerome sees everything," I told Dr. Williams during our quarterly review. "He notices when Sophia is having a difficult day, when Marcus is excited about something, when the mood in the room shifts. He's going to be an incredible advocate for others someday." "And you see everything too," she replied. "The district has taken notice of your test scores, but more importantly, we've noticed your student engagement levels. These kids are thriving in ways that go beyond academic measures." She was right. My students' standardized test scores were above district averages, but the real victories were harder to quantify. Children who'd never participated in class discussions were raising their hands eagerly. Students who'd been labeled as behavior problems were helping resolve conflicts among their peers. Kids who'd started the year believing they weren't smart were taking intellectual risks and celebrating mistakes as learning opportunities. The foundation continued to provide professional development opportunities, and I attended workshops on trauma-informed teaching, culturally responsive pedagogy, and innovative assessment methods. But increasingly, I found myself presenting at these conferences rather than just attending. The key insight, I explained to a room full of educators at a state conference, is that you can't separate a child's emotional needs from their academic needs. When students feel seen, valued, and safe, learning becomes possible. When they feel judged, misunderstood, or threatened, even the best curriculum won't reach them. An audience member raised her hand. "But how do you maintain academic standards while accommodating all these individual needs?" "You maintain high expectations while providing multiple pathways to meet them. You recognize that intelligence manifests in different ways. You understand that a child who struggles with traditional assignments might excel when given alternative ways to demonstrate knowledge." After the presentation, several teachers approached me with questions about implementing similar approaches in their classrooms. One young educator, fresh out of college, looked overwhelmed by the complexity of meeting diverse student needs. "It feels like so much to learn," she confided. "How do you know if you're doing it right?" "You pay attention to your students," I told her. "You notice when they light up, when they shut down, when they're engaged versus when they're just complying. The children will teach you what they need if you're willing to listen and adjust." Tyler visited my classroom whenever his research schedule allowed, often bringing his guitar to lead music sessions with my students. They adored him, this young man who understood their struggles and had channeled them into something positive. "Ms. Mitchell," one of my students asked after Tyler's last visit, "is he really your son?" "He really is. But he's so smart and successful." The comment broke my heart and reinforced why this work mattered so much. This child couldn't imagine that someone who'd grown up like him could achieve academic and professional success. "You know what's interesting about Tyler?" I said to the class. "When he was your age, he struggled with reading. He felt different from other kids because his family situation wasn't traditional. Some teachers thought he'd never go to college." 28 pairs of eyes focused on me with laser intensity. But he had people who believed in him, who helped him find his strengths, who taught him that being different could be a superpower. That's what we're doing here every day. We're discovering your superpowers. Over time, I began to notice changes in my students' self-perceptions. They started describing themselves as good at noticing things instead of hyperactive. They talked about being creative thinkers rather than bad at math. They saw their life experiences as sources of strength rather than reasons for shame. Jerome, whose vigilance had initially seemed like a problem, became our class mediator. His ability to read social situations made him excellent at helping resolve conflicts before they escalated. Marcus channeled his musical talents into academic achievements, composing song-based study guides that helped him and his classmates remember everything from multiplication tables to historical facts. Sophia, once convinced she was too dumb for school, discovered a passion for scientific investigation. Her careful observations and methodical approach to experiments revealed analytical skills that previous teachers had overlooked. As the academic year progressed, I found myself being invited to speak at more conferences, to consult with other schools struggling to serve similar populations, to mentor new teachers who wanted to work with underserved communities. "You've become quite the advocate," Dr. Morrison observed during one of our periodic check-ins. The foundation maintained connections with alumni, tracking our progress and offering ongoing support as needed. "I guess I have. It feels natural, though. Like this is what I was always meant to do." That's what we hoped would happen. When we invest in people like you and Tyler, we're betting that your success will create opportunities for others. You're proving us right. The foundation had indeed been right about ripple effects. Tyler's research had led to new music therapy programs in 3 different school districts. My classroom innovations had been adapted by teachers across the state. Together, we'd presented at national conferences about the power of lived experience in educational settings. But beyond professional achievements, we'd both found the satisfaction that comes from work aligned with purpose. Tyler was helping traumatized children heal through music, while I was helping vulnerable students discover their potential through education. We'd transformed our own struggles into tools for helping others. Spring brought parent-teacher conferences, and I looked forward to sharing progress reports with families who often expected to hear complaints rather than celebrations. Mrs. Washington, Jerome's grandmother, arrived looking nervous and defensive. "What's he done now?" she asked before I could even greet her. "He's been amazing," I said, gesturing for her to sit down. "Let me show you some of his work." I pulled out Jerome's portfolio, filled with thoughtful essays, creative problem-solving, exercises, and evidence of academic growth that far exceeded district expectations. "This is my Jerome?" she asked, flipping through pages of sophisticated thinking and careful analysis. "This is your Jerome. He's one of the most insightful students I've ever taught. His ability to understand complex situations and think critically about problems is remarkable." Mrs. Washington began to cry. "Nobody's ever said things like this about him before. Usually, it's complaints about his behavior or assumptions about his future. Jerome's future is as bright as any child's, Mrs. Washington. Brighter than most, actually, because he has the emotional intelligence to navigate complex situations. With the right support and opportunities, he can accomplish anything. Similar conversations played out with every family. Parents and guardians who'd grown accustomed to defending their children instead found themselves listening to detailed accounts of growth, potential, and possibility. Tyler attended my end-of-year classroom celebration, bringing his guitar for a final music session with my students. As he played and they sang songs we'd composed together throughout the year, I felt a deep sense of completion. 3 years earlier, we'd sat alone at his graduation, feeling abandoned by family who couldn't be bothered to witness his achievement. Now we were surrounded by children and families who'd become our chosen community, people who valued our contributions and celebrated our success. "Ms. Mitchell," Marcus asked as we packed up the classroom for summer break, "will you be our teacher again next year?" "I'll be here," I promised. "And even when you move on to 4th grade, you can always come visit." Once my student, always my student? As the children left for summer vacation, many hugging goodbye with promises to write letters and visit during the break, I sat in my empty classroom feeling profound gratitude for the journey that had brought me here. The Foundation's investment in our education had been repaid many times over, not just in our individual achievements, but in the hundreds of children whose lives we'd already touched. Tyler's research was changing how professionals approach trauma therapy with young people. My teaching methods were being replicated in classrooms across the country. But more than that, we'd proven something important about second chances and human potential. We'd shown that circumstances don't define destiny, that investment in people who've faced challenges creates returns that extend far beyond the original recipients. Tyler called that evening, excited about the PhD program he'd chosen and the research opportunities waiting for him in the fall. "I got an email from Jackson Rivers today," he said. "He's planning to visit my new program next month to discuss expanding foundation partnerships with music therapy schools." "That's wonderful. He'll be so proud to see how far you've come." "Mom, do you ever think about how different our lives would be if our family had shown up to graduation that day?" I considered this, looking around the small apartment Tyler and I had shared near campus before he moved into graduate housing. You know what I think? I think everything happened exactly as it was supposed to. We needed to learn that we could succeed without their approval, that we deserved opportunities based on our own merit rather than family connections. Plus, Tyler added, if they'd been there, we might not have been as open to new possibilities. Sometimes you have to lose the people who don't value you to make room for the ones who do. He was right. Our family's absence from his graduation hadn't been abandonment. It had been liberation. It had freed us from expectations that kept us small, from relationships that demanded gratitude for minimal effort, from a narrative that positioned us as lucky recipients of others' charity rather than people deserving of investment and opportunity. Jackson Rivers had seen our potential when our own relatives had seen only burden and inconvenience. The foundation had believed in our ability to succeed when family members had questioned our ambitions. Our mentors and colleagues had celebrated our achievements when blood relatives had responded with skepticism and doubt. As I prepared for my second year of teaching, I felt excitement about the new group of students I'd be meeting in the fall. Each child would bring their own story, their own challenges, their own hidden strengths waiting to be discovered and nurtured. I thought about the little girl I'd once been, dreaming of becoming a teacher but having to set that aspiration aside when life demanded more immediate survival strategies. She could never have imagined the circuitous route that would eventually lead to this classroom, these children, this purpose. But maybe that's how the best dreams work. They don't disappear. When circumstances force you to defer them, they wait, growing stronger and more refined through experience, until the moment arrives when you're finally ready to pursue them with wisdom earned through struggle. Tyler and I had learned that second chances aren't about returning to where you started. They're about using everything you've learned along the way to build something better than you originally imagined possible. The empty chairs at his graduation had made room for Jackson Rivers to appear in our lives. Our family's skepticism had strengthened our determination to prove them wrong. Years of financial struggle had taught us to value opportunities that others might take for granted. Now, as I looked ahead to a career spent helping children discover their potential, I understood that our story wasn't really about a celebrity who rescued us from poverty. It was about recognizing that we had the power to rescue ourselves once someone believed in us enough to provide the tools and opportunities we needed. The foundation had given us more than money for education. They'd given us permission to dream bigger than survival, to see ourselves as people capable of contributing rather than just enduring, to believe that our experiences, even the painful, had prepared us for work that mattered. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out.